I'm Mick Danzig.
And I'm Hannah Hampton, and you're listening to HR After Hours.
Well, hello and welcome to HR After Hours podcast, the only HR podcast repeatedly mistaken for a parody. No, folks, we're serious. This is really what we do. Hannah Hampton, my sister from another mister. How the hell are you today?
I am great. That's parody. I could kind of see that because sometimes we're not so serious, but I always tell people I take my job seriously, but I don't take myself so seriously. And I think that's what you need to have in HR. So yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I am fantabulous, and I 100% agree that the key to happiness is not taking yourself too fucking seriously.
I meet people like that all the time, and I'm just like, what a miserable way to live your life. I don't know. Some jobs or lives need to be very serious. That's a whole other topic, but here we are.
Please don't judge by the source. This is an article. It was published August 31st in the New York Post. And it's bosses are tracking and judging your social media post for mental health red flags.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first off, that's very New York Post-ish to kind of make it. That's a very bold headline.
Yeah.
And then it makes me think, well, before I even get into the article, I just said I post all this crazy Halloween and horror stuff. Maybe I should change my visibility settings and who sees it, because I could definitely see an employer being a little nervous about someone that's so into zombies.
Have social media locked down. Mine's locked down. Only people I connect with can see what I have on Facebook and Instagram. I lock that shit down.
I like it. Well, let's jump into this article then, because I think of some of what you're already saying is going to come up in our conversation. So the article basically says, oversharing on social media may seem like the norm, but experts warn potential employers are not enthralled by applicants' digital trauma dumping.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the part that I really think guides where our conversation is going to go. It says, initially billed as a white-collar networking platform, LinkedIn has taken a different form in recent years, becoming a site for flirtatious direct messages and unapologetic oversharing by its
and sucking one's own dick, in my opinion. Sorry, I know that's crass, but sometimes the stuff I read on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just like, I can't sometimes with certain messages on LinkedIn where it's just people literally sucking their own dick and being like, look at me. And I get it. Like, that's how you got to self-promote in certain industries and certain businesses, but some of it just seems over the top. And I almost get just frustrated with LinkedIn, but I know that's a whole other topic. But yes, LinkedIn is become another place where people overshare, setting you up for potential employers to see these things, which ultimately, as an HR practitioner, as somebody who's been doing this for a very long time, knowing that, you cannot use a Google search to try to find somebody's background and make decisions on a quote unquote unofficial background check. So I always tell people proceed with caution, because you cannot make decisions based on some things that you might see online. Like if you feel like, oh, I found a criminal record or things of that nature. So I always tell people to proceed with caution. I feel like it's one of those things where you can't unsee things. Certainly we are human beings, and that those biases are going to come to play regardless of you telling somebody not to take it into consideration. This is just there's a lot of danger involved when you overshare on social media.
Stranger danger for sure there, Hannah Hampton. And let me, before we go any further, I did not start this episode with this, but this particular episode is rated M for mature because we have sassy Hannah Hampton today. She's not a big fan of people that can suck their own dick.
I mean, it's a talent, I guess, but I don't want to see it on LinkedIn.
So back to the article. So new research urges job applicants to be more guarded with their content. Future employers are scrutinizing their profiles and even screening them for mental health concerns. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because there's all kinds of stuff. We could stop and tear this apart line by line. According to a study published on August 15th of 2023 in the Journal of Business and Psychology, researchers found that oversharing on social media negatively impacts employers' perceptions of the applicants' emotional stability and their consciousness. People are often encouraged to discuss their mental health struggles on social media with the goal of reducing the stigma associated with mental health challenges. Study co-author Lori Foster, a professor of psychology at North Carolina State, said in a statement, this is a good quote. So we think that reducing stigma around mental health is extremely important, but our studies suggest that mental health posts on platforms such as LinkedIn could have unforeseen consequences for people disclosing their mental health challenges. The study focuses primarily on LinkedIn, which touts more than 930 million members.
Jeez, wow.
They surveyed 409 professionals with hiring experience who reviewed the same job candidate's LinkedIn profile. For the experiment, 25% of the candidates 25% saw a candidate's post mentioning anxiety and depression on LinkedIn, while the other 25% did not. And then another quarter of participants viewed the LinkedIn page without mental health content while also listening to an audio interview. And the final 25% saw the omitted post about mental health and heard the interview. So we've got 50% listening to the interview, half of them without the post, and the other ones judging just on whether or not they heard the interview. So there's so much here.
Creates a lot of bias, unconscious or not. So I feel like there's a lot that goes on there. And let's get real. I think it's great to reduce the stigma of mental health. I think that's a really important thing. And I think we're moving in the right direction with regards to that, because mental health is that is health that is happening. And for years and years and years, people are being gaslit. People are being told it's nothing. So I just want to put that on the table. I believe it's really important. However, I feel like there is still that stigma on there and some unconscious bias. So you are setting yourself up for people who don't understand it or have that kind of old school mindset to second guess your capabilities, whether or not it's warranted, which I don't know, you're walking that kind of thin line. I think it's a little bit challenging. So I always say post with caution.
Exactly. Now let me go to the results of this, and then we're going to unleash. Hannah and I did not discuss this article in advance because we did not want to persuade each other in how we would discuss it here. They found that study participants who saw the LinkedIn post about mental health challenges viewed the job candidate as being less emotionally stable and less conscientious. And then while listening to the candidate's interview, there were qualms about their emotional stability. It was only slight. Our findings don't mean people should refrain from posting about anxiety and depression on LinkedIn. However, people who are considering posting about these issues should be aware that doing so could change future employers' perceptions of them. And then we'll get there. And then to close, the fault doesn't fall solely on the candidates. When hiring managers look up candidates on LinkedIn, they risk seeing information that can color their perceptions, even subconsciously. Organizations should implement guidelines for using LinkedIn during the hiring process to encourage equitable comparisons among all candidates, including those who openly discuss mental health challenges. So a lot to unpack there. There's so many things we can debate on.
Yeah.
Give me your big picture snapshot on this, Hannah Hampton.
Here's the way I look at it. I always tell managers, you're not a doctor. You cannot diagnose anything with regards to people's health, mental or physical health. So I would tell people to refrain from making, those types of decisions. Also, I say, limit what you're looking at for LinkedIn. Take a look at their profile, their experience. I don't know if it's really helpful to go through posts and to make those decisions, because again, you're going to get some bias sneaking in there. So I always tell people to be very mindful about what they're looking at on a candidate leading up to the interview. So having those discussions, starting off the process the right way. I feel like sometimes people get discounted before they even get an opportunity. So that is my piece on that. I've had some uncomfortable conversations with hiring managers. I'm going to share a quick story. I had one who hiring manager who said, I don't want to bring this person in for an interview. I looked at their Facebook page and they don't have any friends from college, which I don't even know how they determined that, but I don't understand how that would even affect somebody's work. But for him, it was a red flag if you didn't have Facebook friends from your college. So I feel like that hiring managers sometimes have really strange conclusions and do really stupid things. So I always caution people to limit what they're seeing on the internet about candidates until after they had a good opportunity to discuss with them and have, go through the right interview process. So that's my 2 cents.
So
Well,
that's
I definitely have more, but I'm going to leave it at that for now.
no, that's a great start. So from the hiring manager perspective, addressing that first. So there's a couple things. First off, as the HR manager recruiter, we're the ones that have the most well-rounded experience
Yeah.
and vision on how to use things like looking at social media. I've
Correct.
always had either hiring managers when I was the in-house recruiting manager, HR manager, and then I've had clients, as I've done my own thing. And it seems to me, especially in-house, that you seem to have these hiring managers that go through these weird stages of their new thing they found to do, like going
Mm-hmm.
through LinkedIn. And it's never with a big picture. It's always, hey, I just learned how to look up a background check for free online. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
look up the background check. Never mind the fact that their name's John Smith and they live in New Jersey.
Yeah, and
Okay.
there's a 10,000 other John Smiths. So
E-
yeah.
Exactly. Or like you said, that, well, I got on their page and they're not, I can't find any of their friends from college. Wow, that's really weird. That makes me want to ask more about the hiring manager and what they do in their free time and why do they have that kind of time to go in that deep into someone's social media and probably be wrong. A lot of things too, as well. If you're going to look about regular social media, or things that were truly intended to be quote unquote social media like Facebook, Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, a lot of people have a personal and a professional page
Yeah.
or multiple pages. So who knows what you're stumbling onto.
Or
So
maybe you're somebody who went to college while working full time and you didn't have a lot of time to socialize. So you didn't meet those friends that other people who have different experiences. So to me, that's a little classist. Like, I know a lot of people who worked full time throughout college. So they were busy in their full time job and studying and didn't have time to join fraternities, sororities, social things because they had to work their ass off to get that degree. So I feel like that is just a terrible conclusion to jump to because you don't know their personal situation.
maybe they got a divorce from their college sweetheart and she got the friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's
there's
all
so many explanations rather than just being like, this person doesn't have friends and that's a red flag. And it's like, you don't know shit about this person. And it just pisses me off.
So we're going to go back to this part because this is really the meat of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I want to touch very quickly is to the candidate, the LinkedIn user. Your page may be looked at. LinkedIn is not for your personal sharing and growing. LinkedIn is your business related profile.
Mm-hmm.
If you're using it to vent your political beliefs, your personal problems, trash your ex-girlfriend, whatever it is, you're using it wrong. That's not what it's for. And
Yeah.
people, I encourage you to tell me you disagree and send us all the hate mail you
Yeah.
want.
Send us hate mail.
Send us hate mail. The whole thing is LinkedIn is your opportunity to present your professional self. And I don't know about you, Hannah. I'm very real in my professional life, but at the same time, there are parts of my personal life that will never come into my professional life. I would never
Same.
share with people, never tag my kids if I post about them on regular social media. And again, when I say quote unquote regular social media, I mean Facebook, things that are for your social life, hence
Correct.
the term social media. LinkedIn is a networking site. It's your opportunity to present yourself as your professional in your field. It's not meant for you to DM the old college girlfriend or boyfriend and see if you can rekindle anything. It's not for you to vent That's not what it's for. And if you do those things, you probably are going to have some negative ramifications because that's not what this page is for. It's never going to be for it. And the second it is, I will remove myself from it because I only use it for business.
Correct, correct. Yeah, and I agree with that. I think, there are social media for social, and LinkedIn was created as a business tool. And I think largely people align with that. So I feel like it's the exception rather than the rule of people who try to use it for dating or to be creepy to folks. But it is for professional uses. But sometimes I feel like I get a little frustrated because you get inundated with salespeople or you get inundated with people who are self-promoting. And sometimes it's like, look, I just want to see the latest in my industry. I want to see latest news. I want to know what the companies I'm following are doing. It's a great place to post jobs and to network for recruiting purposes. But sometimes these posts of people like tooting their own horns is a little bit much.
That's the worst part of LinkedIn as far as by its purpose is it is almost an organic resume, right? It is kind of field specific as far as tooting your own horn. When I place someone with a great company, I congratulate them on my
Yeah.
LinkedIn. I still make it anonymous unless they want it on there. I usually just put their first name and talk about the company they joined and how excited I am for them. And so that's my, indirect way of tooting my own horn because I want other people to see, oh, Mick got this person, another person, a great job. Maybe I should reach out to him or send him my resume. But the post doesn't go, man, boom. Big Daddy Mick's in the house again, and I
Exactly.
slayed it. Congrats, Jocelyn, on the job only I could have found for you. Now that's horseshit. And I wouldn't want to talk to the person that posted that.
Or
So
those like really crazy stories, and they get made fun of all the time, where it's like, I was on my way to a job interview and I saw a dog on the side of the road and I gave the dog some water. And when I showed up to the interview, who was my interviewer? It
it was the dog.
was the dog. So it's that stuff that's like it's a little much, and some of those I'm like, I take it with a grain of salt. Now there are that I feel like there's great stories. There's wins that you certainly would want to celebrate and share on there, and then there's other ones where it's just like, look at how smart and thoughtful I am because I was so nice to that dog on the way to the interview, and then the dog was my interviewer.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think you could have come up with a better analogy or way to share that. That's friggin' awesome. You
Well,
know,
it's not an original. I've seen people post where they're like, it was the dog that interviewed me. Of course, it was probably written funnier with more detail, but I feel like it really gets to to the nut of the situation.
something, and I'm not addressing the issues with this article in order of importance or priority, but the first thing that, I guess this is what I would say is kind of the important take out of this or whatever is they talk about creating those conversations about mental health for the sake of mental health awareness.
Yes.
You can put, I mean, you don't have to make it about you. If people would learn that they don't have to make things about them, I think
Hmm.
half of our problems would go away and we'd all get along a little better. But, if you find a great article about mental health, share it. Just say, this is a great article I read. I like to raise awareness, or this person does a great job in this article discussing how you can get a coworker help,
Hmm.
or this article shows that those that may look the happiest on the outside are really struggling. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Say
I
this is a
agree.
way to make you aware that it's okay
Yes.
not to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I fully support the fact that, yes, I feel like we need to remove the stigma of mental health issues. And the more people talk about it, the more I think normalized it becomes. But again, just with anything that you post on the internet, be mindful of what you're sharing. I think, and maybe that's coming from a too cautious of a place, but it's kind of like back. But when I was growing up, I was told not to talk to strangers, and now we're just sharing everything with strangers, and it's just a different world. And maybe, that's the Gen Xer in me who struggles with it, because I feel like current generations have no problems sharing anything and everything online, but I feel like that just opens yourself up to a little bit of danger. So I always say, just be mindful, be careful about these things.
I love, because you just went to where I was going to go next anyway.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm looking at the paragraph in the article that says oversharing on social media may seem like the norm, but experts warn potential employers are not enthralled by applicants' digital trauma dumping. What's funny about that is I think it's hilariously sad that we have to still warn people that other people are looking at your post.
Yeah.
This reminds me of, I kid you not, back in 2000, way to age yourself, Mick, part of my recruiting process, and you've done campus recruiting. That's how you started the recruiting portion of
Yeah.
your career. Well, I actually did it with the tech schools at first, because I used to work with the electronic techs, the ones that worked on video games and things like that. And I go to these tech schools, and my little presentation before I pitched my jobs to them was always about being aware of your resume. And back then, it was not, don't share on social media too much, because we didn't really
There
have
was
it
no
yet.
social media. Yeah.
MySpace was just about to break, but it was, don't have an email address that says 420burner at yahoo.com, because people really didn't think of it. And so they'd
Right.
have this great resume and they'd put a completely inappropriate email address on their resume. So I taught them to have a
Still
professional email.
happens. It still
Yeah.
happens. But go on.
But I'm like, if you have to put swinging pineapple, if that's your personal address, create a work address, is what I had to do 23 years ago, is what I had to teach people. The fact that we're still in articles, and I would blame that paragraph on the fact that the article came from the New York Post, but it came from this study from this organization that still has to tell people, watch what you share on social media. And
Yeah.
you said it simply, your social media is on lockdown. Mine's on lockdown, but if I have something that is either related to our podcast or is something like a really insightful article about depression and recovery and mental illness, I just change that setting to public. But then once I think it's done its due diligence, then I eliminate it, so it's not always on my timeline. And I set my social media to erase most posts after X amount of times.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Interesting.
yes. Now I've changed the way I use my personal social media, and the fact that pretty much anything I post right now is either to communicate to my family, or if I'm just kind of putting something out there for me to look at later. This is something that was important to
Hmm.
me in summer of 2023. Let's see if it holds up. If it's still important to me in
Hmm.
2027, do I still feel
Hmm.
the same way about this? But let me tell you what I don't post. I don't post things about politics. I don't
Oh,
post
me either.
things, I don't blast anyone on social media, because I don't want it floating around there. I don't post on sites and boards, anything that's going to be there forever. But don't use LinkedIn this way, first off. Secondly, do be careful about your social media. But if you are an advocate for mental health and things like that, you don't have to say, hey, I went through a really dark time. No one needs to know that. Just remember that LinkedIn is your living resume. And if you
Hmm.
treat it that way, I think that you'll avoid these type of future mishaps.
Yeah.
What do you have for us, Hannah?
No, I think that was a great recap. And at the end of the day, the way I look at it, like, look, ultimately it is your social media, so you can do what you want to do. But like anything that you share publicly, share with caution. Because again, I mean, I think there's been times where people have shared things that have caused some issues or caused people to be upset. Or I mean, I feel like you see people who will then delete their social media because they have gone so far over the edge, and people come back and attack them, that it turns into a big ordeal. So I always just say, be mindful about what you're posting. I also tell people, like, would you share this with your grandmother? If you wouldn't, then maybe don't put it on social media. LinkedIn is professional, so try to keep it professional. And those are just some of the ways that you can stay above board. But at the end of the day, You do you, boo.
Before we close, I want to be very serious. We take this extremely seriously. For those that aren't aware, 988 is the suicide and crisis lifeline. If you ever feel like you need help and you don't have a resource or someone that you can go to, dial 988. They'll get you where you need to be, or at least help you find the help that can get you out of that bad place. Because ultimately, what are we here to do, Hannah?
We are here to put the human back into human resources.
Have a fantastic day.